They said I ruined Thanksgiving that night. But no one tells you how much peace looks like betrayal to people who profit from your silence. The table was glowing, gold candles, white napkins folded like swans, laughter rehearsed to sound effortless. My daughter Clara stood at the head of it all, her voice warm and sharp. "You could at least thank me. Mom, you don't know how much I've done for you." The room waited, half smiling, half watching. Like I was a guest who'd forgotten her line. I felt the familiar ache of years spent apologizing for existing quietly. Then she said it. "You're so ungrateful." The word didn't hit me. It hollowed me. I looked around. At the friends who thought we were the picture of a perfect family. At her husband who looked down and pretended not to hear. Then I lifted my glass. The wine caught the light, trembling between gold and red. "Then here's to gratitude," I said softly, my voice steady enough to steal the air. "Yours, not mine, and to the last time you'll ever see me. Silence, the kind that breaks more than it keeps." My name is Eleanor Hayes. I'm 65 years old, born in Oregon, still living where the fog touches the pines. People in town call me the teacher who never remarried, the woman who still reads poetry to empty classrooms and wears silk when it rains. Before I tell you what really happened that Thanksgiving night, I want to know, where are you watching from? Maybe from a kitchen like mine. Maybe from somewhere far away where mothers and daughters stop talking, but still, check if the other's light is on. Don't forget to like, follow, and stay with me. Because this isn't just a story about a dinner gone wrong. It's about what happens when love turns into an invoice, when silence becomes survival. They say mothers are built to forgive, but I've learned forgiveness can feel like disappearing. So sit with me for a while. I'll tell you how a single word, ungrateful, unraveled 40 years of motherhood and stitched me back into the woman I was before I ever learned to apologize for breathing. This isn't a confession. It's a reclamation. Clara's house stood on the hill like a glass promise, beautiful, breakable. Inside, everything gleamed. The marble counters, the gold-rimmed plates, the kind of perfection that smells expensive but not warm. She moved through her guests like a woman on stage. Every smile practiced, every word rehearsed. Her husband, Michael, laughed too loud, his hand on her shoulder like punctuation. I sat at the end of the table where the light didn't quite reach. The turkey had already been carved before I arrived. The wine was poured, but not for me. "You could at least thank me," Clara said suddenly, her tone bright enough to sting. "You don't know how much I've done for you, Mom." Forks paused. Laughter thinned. Even the fire flickered, uncertain. I looked at her, the woman I raised from scraped knees to high heels. The one who once swore she'd never forget who she came from. I smiled faintly. I didn't realize love required receipts. A few polite laughs. Then silence. Her voice turned cold. "You're ungrateful." I lifted my glass, the wine trembling under the chandelier. "Then here's to gratitude," I said softly. "Yours, not mine." The rain began as a whisper, then grew into a hymn against the windshield. The highway stretched ahead, empty, gleaming, endless. Streetlights blurred into gold ribbons, bending in the wet glass. I drove through the storm with the window slightly cracked, just enough to smell the pine and feel the cold. It stung my skin, but it felt honest, something real after all the false warmth I'd just left behind. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, not from anger anymore, but from release, the kind that hurts because it's freedom in disguise. In the rearview mirror, the glow of Clara's house faded into the mist, shrinking until it became nothing more than a dot swallowed by rain. The wipers groaned, the radio hummed low, and for the first time in years, I didn't rush to fill the silence. Dale used to say, "Silence is what love sounds like when it's tired." I think I finally understood him that night. The road curved gently toward home, and somewhere between thunder and quiet, I realized sometimes walking away isn't leaving, it's returning. Morning came pale and quiet, the kind of light that doesn't warm, it only reveals. I sat at my old oak desk, steam rising from a cup of black coffee that had already gone cold. The house was too still, as if holding its breath. I opened a box I hadn't touched in years. Inside, neat stacks of papers bound with fading ribbons. Tuition receipts, rent checks, hospital bills, Every sheet a story of sacrifice written in numbers. I flipped through the years. Clara's college deposit, her first apartment, the loan for her business. Every time I'd written paid early in the corner. Like love could be measured in punctuality. There were no thank you notes, no scribbled hearts, no sign of memory. Only ink. Only arithmetic. My throat tightened, not with anger but with understanding. I hadn't raised a selfish daughter. I'd raised a mirror of my own silence. A woman who learned that love meant giving until nothing was left. I closed the ledger gently, as if it were a wound. Maybe this is how mothers disappear. Not in death, but in devotion. It arrived on a Wednesday, thin, cream-colored, harmless at first glance. The kind of envelope banks send every month. The kind you open while waiting for water to boil. But across the top, in red, account activity notice, immediate attention required. My chest tightened before I even unfolded the letter. 3 withdrawals. Each one larger than the last. Each signed electronically with my name. But I'd never signed anything online in my life. The access point number glared at me like an accusation. User ID, Clara & Co. Realty. My breath caught. I checked again, certain I'd misread. But the print didn't change. I sank into the chair, the paper trembling in my hands. Not from shock, but from the slow, suffocating realization that love could look exactly like theft. The house creaked around me. The rain had stopped, but the silence was heavier than before. I traced my name at the bottom of the page. Forged, perfect, practiced. That was the moment I stopped being a mother in denial. And became a woman preparing for war. Samuel Carter's office sat at the edge of town. A weathered craftsman house wrapped in ivy. The same place where he once helped my late husband draft our will. Inside, it still smelled of pine polish and old paper, like time itself had never left. He greeted me softly. That careful tone men use when they see a woman holding too much truth. I handed him the envelope. He unfolded it slowly, studying each line under the yellow glow of his desk lamp. "This isn't a mistake, Ellie," he said at last, his voice steady but heavy. "It's fraud." The word settled between us like dust. "And it was done by someone who knows you well." He turned the page toward me, finger resting on the access ID. Clara & Co. Realty. I felt something inside me shift. Not break, not yet, but realign. "What do I do?" I asked quietly. He slid a form across the desk. "You sign here. We file an affidavit of forgery. It'll freeze the account." I signed my name beside the word victim. My hand didn't shake. For the first time in years, my silence finally had consequences. The knock came just after sunset. 3 sharp raps against the door. Too frantic to be polite. When I opened it, Clara stood there in the rain. Her coat soaked, mascara smudged, hands shaking around a damp handkerchief. "Mom," she breathed, "they're saying things about the accounts, about me. You have to help me." For a moment, I almost did what mothers do, reach out, rescue, forgive. But mercy is a luxury you lose when truth costs this much. "I did help you," I said softly. "You just called it something else." Her eyes narrowed. "You filed those reports. You talked to that lawyer. You ruined everything." I turned toward my desk, picked up a sealed envelope and placed it in her hands. "That's a copy of the police report," I said. "And my will. In case you plan to say I've lost my mind." Her face went white. "You're heartless." I opened the door for her, the cold wind slicing between us. "Heartless women survive what kind ones can't," I whispered. She left without looking back. And for the first time, I didn't chase after her shadow. 3 weeks passed in a strange kind of quiet. No calls, no visits, only the steady rhythm of the rain against the windows. Then one morning, Samuel's truck pulled into the gravel drive. He stepped out holding a folded newspaper, his face already telling me what it said. "They ran it," he murmured, handing it over. Across the front page, real estate firm under federal. Investigation, forged signatures, missing funds. Beneath the headline, 2 photos, Michael Reed and Clara Hayes. My daughter's face, pale, distant, exhausted. Not guilt, not anger. Just the hollow stare of someone who's finally run out of stories to tell. I sank into my chair on the porch. The newspaper crinkled softly in my hands. like autumn leaves folding into themselves. "There's no victory in it," I said quietly. "Just truth standing where the lies used to be." Samuel nodded, setting his teacup down. "You didn't destroy them, Eleanor. You just stopped hiding their ruins." Outside, the river moved slow and steady, indifferent, eternal. For the first time in years, I felt something settle inside me. Not peace, but the beginning of it. Dusk fell soft and gold, the kind of light that forgives everything it touches. I walked down the narrow path behind my cottage, lantern in hand, the river murmuring like a secret ahead of me. The air smelled of lilac and rain-soaked earth, alive, unafraid. When I reached the water's edge, I knelt. The current shimmered slow and certain, the same way it always had before I learned what silence costs. "They called me ungrateful," I whispered, tracing the rim of the lantern with my thumb. "But gratitude isn't obedience. It's freedom earned the hard way." I set the lantern gently on the surface. It wobbled once, then steadied, drifting with the current, its glow stretching thin across the darkening water. Behind me, my cottage windows glowed warm and golden, alive with a quiet that finally felt like peace. I watched the lantern until it became a small, trembling star against the horizon, swallowed by the turning of the river. And for the first time in a lifetime, I didn't feel like someone's mother, widow, or burden. I was simply Eleanor Hayes, a woman who walked through fire and came out light.